And we must have served a useful purpose because a lot of them became founders, past members, and some of them became crusaders and are around and with us today. And we're still talking about some of those same issues here. I think that the Corona Doom, the scamdemic, shamdemic, whatever the hell you want to call it, just pulled the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, a blindfold off of many people, and they went, "What? What? No, doctors are good people. They would never do that." Yeah, they would. Yeah, they would. You're not dealing with Marcus Welby, MD, anymore, bro. This isn't Trapper John from MASH. You're not dealing with House. Oh, to have Hugh Ritchie back and Dr. House. Yeah, but he didn't kill anybody when he was going through his fits of whatever. The medical services profession has become, I think, irrevocably corrupted. And it's been corrupted by corporations. You know, we have been chronicling this for decades here on the Mike Church Show. If you're a new listener, buckle up because it's a wild ride. When you start changing St. Luke's Hospital to Kaiser Permanente in big giant letters and a little tiny thing at the bottom that says formerly St. Luke's, you got a problem. You have switched from providing charitable care for people that need it to providing something that resembles care to stockholders that need a return on their investment. That's not medicine. You know, Tucker Carlson yelling at Mark Cuban yesterday going like, dude, why don't you spend your money in Ukraine? If it's such a good charity event, spend your money. So one of the things that you can track and you can see is the amount of people that die every year because of medical errors. And this is just scratching the surface. You know, so much to what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. can do and can tackle under the rubric of MAHA, to make America healthy again. Well, speaking of those new people and the people that we have been blessed to meet, our audio producer of 25 years, Jim Mosier, came to me a couple of months ago, and he goes, I got an idea. And I said, what's your idea? And he goes, we're going to change the imaging of the Crusade channel, and you're going to use your comedic genius, and you're going to write these spots, and I'm going to get this girl, Lee, and she and I are going to voice them, and they're going to be fantastic. We're going to give the station a whole new identity. And I said, okay, I'm game. And, of course, you have now heard the result of that with the, Lee, as I introduce you as Trader Jill to your adoring Twitter and X fans, Maggie O'Connell, the producer of the show, is going to ask for a Trader Jill Lee greatest hit. Because she wants to hear you say, in response to, what? That's like being stuck in an elevator with Jasmine Crockett. Can you do it?
It's my favorite.
Can I do it right now?
Well, we know you can do it because you did it.
I know. All right, let's see. What? That's like being stuck in an elevator behind Jasmine Crockett.
Yes,
right?
It's my absolute favorite.
It is. We laugh every time it comes on. And there's a new one coming. There's she gets stuck in an all-you-can-eat buffet line behind J.B. Pritzker. It's even worse. So
Nobody. I mean, you're going to die of starvation if you're stuck behind that man.
Jill, because you're Trader Jill on X.com, then you parentheses, your name is Lee. So everyone knows your name is Lee. You have had a rough go of it with the medical services profession and with just medicine in general, just over the course of the last couple of years of your life. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself before we start talking about how bad medicine has become?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm only as good as I suppose the research that I do. I'm not particularly accomplished. In fact, about 15 years ago, right after my daughter was born, I got very sick with MS, which is multiple sclerosis, and an autoimmune disease that attacks my brain and my spinal cord. And so it necessitated me to drop out of college. because I was too sick and I had a newborn. And so I was trying to scramble to do something else. And I found the stock market. And at the time, the man that I was with was kind of messing around with it. And I was like, I don't understand the moves that you're making. They seem illogical to me. I think I can do better. And I did. So I just started teaching myself medical practices, drugs, things of that nature, and I got really, really good at it and started being able to live off of it. And then eventually I transitioned into being able to teach other people how to do it, even though my cognition has slipped a little bit the last couple of years, and I've stopped teaching, which is a minefield in and of itself, because with every single class that I would give people, I would have to say, listen, I am self-taught. I do not have the backing behind me. So you need to understand that going forward. I had to say it every single time. So I consulted a lawyer ahead of time to find out what was legal and what wasn't. So that's just a little bit about me.
So that's how you get the trader part of the name, Trader Jill.
Correct, yes.
Well, so you're a Nancy Pelosi in training.
So were we going to start with insults right out of the gate here, man?
Well, I've only known
I'm
you.
not that far gone.
I've only known you known of you for about 6 months here, and following you on X, and you write and you talk about a lot. For example, just this morning, and this subject has come up on this show. It came up in 2019 before the Corona hoax, and we were asking the question 6 years ago. Why are so many people dying of medical errors, Jill?
Which is a really good question. And I lovingly call myself the drug queen. So I've spent years researching. So there's jargon in the medical field that you have to understand, like things like SAs and SAEs, right? I'm just going to throw those letters out there, and the average guy is not going to know what that means. And it's basically side effects. So adverse events or serious adverse events, everybody always has to have their colorful little lingo. I think that they do it to just make themselves feel excessively important, because they don't really need to do that. They can just say side effects, but they don't. Long story short, I apologize. My brain is skipping just a little bit, as
it's okay.
I've just had this serious issue with convulsions and seizures, and I'm just coming back from it. So I'm actually having to look at notes to remember the things that I'm saying to you.
It's okay. It's all right. We have brain spasms every day too, and I don't have the excuse that I have MS. So you have.
So I can tell you my story, and I can tell you what has happened to me, which is clear as day.
Okay.
And so I'm still researching what we can do about these things. So in the scientific world and in the stock market, you go with empirical evidence. You don't go with what you want something to be. You go with what it is. So you can't engage in magical thinking, or people die, or you're unsuccessful. It can't work that way. But unfortunately, in the medical field, what we want to believe takes precedence far more than it absolutely should. So January 1st of 2025, we called an ambulance. And it was because I was in agony. I was in so much pain that sweat was just pouring down my body.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever had that happen to you, but it's not a good feeling. I was almost screaming. So the ambulance gets me to the hospital. Initially, they take me in, and this particular general surgeon who saw me, she's actually from the Bahamas or Barbados or something. We'll get back to foreign doctors in a minute, but I'm going to tell you my experiences, they're better. And I have a theory as to why, but again, we'll circle back to that.
Okay.
But initially, so we go in, and she said, we did this study on your gallbladder, and it has full function. And I said, I don't care. I don't want to feel this pain again. Get it out. And so the next day I went into surgery, and she took it out. No issues, completely flawless. She did a great job. You can barely see anything. And then I was like, okay, I've got this. She did great, and I started doing, getting up and walking around. So I was doing laps in the hospital, to get back on the horse. I want to get home to my daughter, and I don't want to be in the hospital. So I was feeling good. It was getting better. And then I get back to the room, and slowly it started. Oh, when she took it out, sorry, I have to backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
When she took it out, she was like, oh, yeah, it needed to come out. It was full of stones. I was like, yeah, I could have told you that. But they can only show so much. At any rate, I get back to the hospital room, and then slowly the pain starts to build and build and build and build until I'm screaming. It was the worst agony that I've ever experienced in my life. And I had these 20-something tween paramedics surrounding me, these big burly guys, because my nurse was this tiny little girl, and I was in so much pain, I was screaming, and then I collapsed on her. I completely blacked out, and they're telling me, you need to calm down. So funny story about that, the general surgeon absolutely ripped them apart because of what they found. They took me back in, and they discovered, they started running labs and whatnot, that for whatever reason, pancreatitis was triggered. Now, she said to me when she went to medical school that she was taught 3 things. Eat when you can, sleep when you can, don't piss off the pancreas. When you you really need that. That's not one of those organs you can replace. You get pancreatic cancer, chances are you're going to die. So pancreatitis is extremely painful. It's probably the worst pain you'll ever experience in your life, unless the Taliban gets a hold of you, and then that's a whole different story. So we go back in, and then the other surgeon is like, okay, what we think is that there are stones built up in the common bile duct. So we're going to scrape that out. We're going to scrape out what we can get inside the pancreas, and then we're going to insert a stent. I'm like, okay, yep, let's do that. I'm not for this pain. Morphine wasn't even touching me. They had to go to Dilaudid, and I'm not an opioid fan. I don't like it. So I finally got released with Dilaudid. So long story short, they moved into surgery the next day, and which was just a procedure. They went down my throat, and then they were able to do it that route. So I wake up from the surgery. He comes running over, and he goes, you have to go back in. It was mal-deployed. And I'm like, I'm sorry, sir, what are you saying to me right now? He said the stent was placed in your intestine and not your pancreas. Oh my God. And I'm like, that seems like a really bad thing.
How do you mistake a pancreas for an intestine?
It's a really good question, isn't it? So they take me back in. He does fix it. And it's actually even in my hospital records. My primary care physician, he looked at it and he goes, wow. So he actually admitted it right in your records. They don't usually do that. Now let's pause for a moment and look at that they don't usually admit their errors in your hospital records, so much so that my doctor was surprised about that. That's a problem.
That's a major problem. So to recap, okay, so you go in. Now, lots of people have issues with gallstones. And I had a friend, she used to work for us, Jennifer, and she was a young girl, and her doctor's like, well, I'm going to yank your gallbladder out. And we both told her, look, before you do that, are they telling you what it's going to do to you for the rest of your life? Because you actually kind of need that little guy. Now, you can live without it, and they will give you they'll medicate you so that you can make it without it. But unless you absolutely have to be rid of that guy, then you need to keep it. You know, they used to go in and they used to, make an incision. I'm old enough to remember because my stepmother had hers surgeonated. They didn't take it out. They went in, they cut it open, they yanked the stones out, and they sewed it back up. And when she was 81, when she died, she still had the same gallbladder. So just going back to the gallbladder thing, yours, though, was one of the instances where it actually needed to come out.
Yeah, it was so full as to, even though I was showing full function on the test, she's like, this is just, it's not even gallbladder anymore, it's stones.
Okay, so after they put the stent in the wrong place, they go back in, and then they put the stent in the correct place. Now you're off to Disneyland. You and the daughter are going to Disney World, and all's right with the world, right?
Sadly, no. So this was a 2-week stent. The pancreatitis was so severe, they had to, infectious disease got involved. I was moved to the PCU, which is like the transition stage before you go to the ICU, for more intensive watching and care. And he was like, all right, your white blood cells are not coming down. Your pancreatic enzymes are not coming down. I should have sent Candace a slide of my enzymes. I think it's on my profile somewhere, so I apologize for that. I was
That's
not
all right.
prepared for this. Yeah. Anyway, so,
Maggie is grabbing all sorts of screen caps from your for your ample work on X.com. Don't worry about it. We got you covered.
okay, great. So yeah, it's just my labs are an absolute mess. So infectious disease comes in, and they said, okay, the antibiotics, the IV antibiotics that you're on, it's not lowering your white blood cells. Your surrounding organs are reacting. This is a bad thing. When the pancreas loses its little mind because it hates you, it will start shutting down the surrounding organs. That's bad. So he said, okay, we have to bump you up to the next highest antibiotic, because the stronger the antibiotic gets, the IV antibiotics, the worse the risk for the patient. Okay. So you're balancing things, and that's always the case in the medical field. So I was like, okay. And I believe that the antibiotic was Marin. I would have to double check. I don't remember. It started with an M.
All right.
And I was like, okay. So then they started seeing some reactions. So in the meantime, the gastric doctor that placed the stent, to his credit, the man admitted his mistake. He immediately, radiology immediately caught it and said it was mal-deployed, and he immediately put me back under. So do we want to, it's sort of like, I don't blame him as a doctor. I blame the system. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
And somehow, some way, there should have been better safeguards, because this could have gone terribly bad. So what they had to do was make me drink this god-awful dye that you're not going to want to serve at dinner parties. And it was just terrible. And so I'm like, I can't drink 2 jugs of that without throwing up. You can get 1. And so we finally get it. We get the imaging. So a couple of times they had to do CT scans of my abdomen, my intestines, to make sure there was no leaking into the abdomen, because this hospital was not equipped to deal with an intestinal leak from my bowels into my body. I would have gone septic.
I was going to say, you go sepsis on that.
Exactly. And so I'm like, this is terrifying. So at the time, I was so sick, it wasn't registering what was happening. But once it did, I called my primary in terror and tears, and I said, these people are going to kill me. And so I was already sick. My daughter is freaked out. It was just a terrible ordeal. So this is the first ordeal. Then we move into the second ordeal. I've had a rough year.
It sounds like you've had a rough joke. By the way, folks, we were talking with Trader Jill on X.com. You can follow her at Real Trader Jill. You can also hear her here on the Crusade Channel on a variety of the Crusade Channel 4.0 imaging and comedy bits and rejoins and what have you. We're hearing all about Jill's travails with the medical services system and with medical service providers, which again, Jill, you're in very good company. People want to hear this because we all went through Corona together, this audience.
Yeah.
We all went through lockdown together, and we never believed it from December of 2019 on. I wasn't one of those people that had to have this crap revealed to me, because I was looking at it going like this science is wrong. That's not what's going on here. So can you hold the line for through the quick break? And you'll hear yourself,
Yes,
by the way.
Oh, that which is surreal. You got it.
Okay, hang on. We'll be right back. As quickly as President Trump thought that they were going to, and as I have been telling you, just a quick update for new listeners, the Russians are going to win. You can conform your mind to that reality anytime you wish. They're not. This is an existential civilization. It's not going away. You understand that? And it doesn't care what you and your blue jeans and your McDonald's stock thinks. It doesn't care. So it literally, at this point, is
It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear. And it absolutely will not stop, ever, until you are dead.
so. Having said all that, we're going to go back to a conversation with Trader Jill. You also know her as Lee here on the Crusade Channel, on many of our Crusade Channel 4.0 rejoins and comedy bits, and she's in Talk Trek, which we're working on part 2, and some other great stuff that we're working on. She also just happens to be a MAHA activist, and we're talking about what she has personally been through, and through a couple of hospitals in southern, or it's not southern Florida, you're in central Florida, actually, right, Jill?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So we just got through putting stents in intestines that were intended for pancreases, and getting the stent in the right place, and pancreatitis, and you calling your general practice and going, get me, dude, get me out of here. They're going to kill me. Get me out of here. They're measuring the coffin, man. So pick it up from there.
So 3 months later, they did remove the stent, and same guy, and he actually came over and he said, what happened with you kept me awake for nights for a week or so. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, yeah, it wasn't great for me either, to be honest with you. And so he took the stent out, but it somehow, some way, it gave me this insane antibiotic resistant UTI that required like 3 rounds of at-home high-powered antibiotics. And I'm like, what is happening here? So that happened. And then fast forward to the most recent incident where, same hospital, I finally learned after the 4th time, 3rd time is a charm, but 4th time, the 3rd time at this hospital, I went in by ambulance a couple of weeks ago because of convulsions. They think that it was a severe MS attack. They argue about the nature of the convulsions, seizures, whatever you want to call them, because I was completely aware. And that flips them on their head. When you're completely aware and lucid while your body is losing its mind, haha, they don't understand that. They're like, wait a minute, what? And I said, yeah, I was completely aware. But my body just utterly lost control. So the eventual diagnosis ended up being a very severe, insane MS attack. It's like Christmas, but without the happy. You just never know what you're going to get. So I went in, and 3 events happened there. Wait, 2 or 3. Anyway, we'll go in order, and we'll double check.
Okay.
So initially I went in, and the first doctor, an older lady, was on an absolute power trip. I've been in the drug world for over 15 years at this point. I've done nothing but study medical trials and data. In fact, I think 1 week I read something like over 100. That's not typical, because I'm only interested in the positions that I'm interested in the stock market. That was just a really, really heavy week, so don't be too impressed.
No, your Twitter, your X.com blog, folks, you should follow Jill, Trader Jill on X if you're on X. Your X.com blog is chock full of actual intel and information, and you actually will have conversations with people, unlike other people that are in your position. So, and you're having a conversation with us. So, and there's so much that I have like 20 tabs open on Trader Jill. So
Okay.
we're not going to get to it all.
Poor man.
We're not going to get to it all today, but there's a lot to go through. So please continue.
Yeah, so initially she was, and what people don't understand is that you have a right to be involved in your own care. The issue is that the internet has produced a lot of WebMD doctors. They know just enough to be dangerous or difficult, but not enough to be effective. But you have a right to ask for questions. And I started getting to the point where I'm like, let me see what that drug is. I want to see it right on the lab and right on the tab, and then go from there. You have a right to do that. So initially she goes in. I'd been on the blood thinners for about a week now. I hate saying this because at the end of the day, I'm still a lady, so I don't like to talk about my bowels, you know?
Right. I understand.
Let's just say after a week, it was very loose, and I felt dehydrated, and I I went in and I was like, so she comes in the hospital room after they get the convulsions settled down. And I said, I would like to be started on fluids because of this, and this. I had very real reasons for it. And there was no indication so far that, I had congestive heart failure or there were any issues with giving me fluids. It's saline solutions, for God's sake. She started giving me attitude right out of the gate. She was like, I'm not going to put anything in your body that is not indicated. Turns out that, when they got the urine sample back, that, yeah, I was dehydrated. And so I was like, I don't trust you if you're not going to work with me for my care. And then she was like, all right, then basically just leave. And the nurses were so alarmed that they rallied around me and they said, you're very sick, you can't leave. And so it took the next day before I got a different doctor, but in the meantime, the hospitalist was taking care of me.
Well,
the doctor the next day said there was no reason for you not to get fluids, and I would have given them to you. We have to weigh what is going to make the patient feel better versus what's happening. If it's not going to hurt them, yeah, I'll give it to them, which is the right response.
And the other thing that I'm just jump in real quick here is anybody that's spent any amount of time in a hospital, and you have, knows this, doctors don't know squat. The nurses run the show.
100%.
The nurses
keep
are
the doctors from killing you.
The nurses will save your life. Doctors will probably not so much. And that's not a blanket statement against doctors. I'm sorry. Your track record is your baseball card keeps getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. No one wants it. Nurse Ratchets, yeah, we want her card. It's going up in value.
Exactly.
Yours is going down.
So they they stabilized me. Still a lot of questions, blah, blah, blah. Nobody really knew. The neurologist was terribly unprofessional. I wasn't trying to name drop when I mentioned Dr. Seam that works under RFK, who is actually a brilliant cardiologist, a British guy of Indian descent. And he really is a brilliant doctor. He's been calling out the COVID nonsense from the start. And so this neurologist, when I forget what he said, and I was like, yeah, I said, worst case scenario, I could probably reach out to Dr. Seam, and I mentioned a couple of other doctors that I have the privilege of knowing. And I use knowing in quotation marks. It's not like we're besties or anything. I want to be real clear about that. But he goes, oh, I wouldn't brag about that. And I'm like, whoa, that is so unprofessional. Why would you say that? But he was a stroke neurologist and not an MS neurologist. And so he started throwing out, we're just going to say retarded possibilities, like trauma from my childhood created genetic defects causing these convulsions. And I'm like, I'm sorry, sir, what? Did you just kind of say it's in my head because I'm a crazy woman? Is that what just happened? So, needless to say, I started getting a little feisty. So this part ended with them releasing me. I didn't ask for benzos. I didn't ask for any sort of anxiety medication. They just threw in Xanax. So the pharmacist called me in alarm the next day, and he said, with the amount that this doctor tried to prescribe to you, you wouldn't wake back up. He said, I wanted to let you know I don't have a problem filling a Xanax prescription for you, but these orders I can't fill because, like I said, you won't wake back up and it's not responsible, and I can't get a hold of the doctor. And I'm going to put this into perspective, okay? You're going to take 1 milligram of extended release Xanax every 24 hours. This idiot prescribed 1 milligram every 8 hours.
Wow. Good Lord. Is it possible that he had a typo?
Yeah, well, the pharmacist said he probably clicked extended release instead of regular. And I said, okay, great, but what happens if there's a young pharmacist that didn't
Who doesn't catch it?
What happens if I'm not so versed in the drug world that I didn't double check it? They're killing people, Mike. They're killing people with this fast food medicine and just ridiculous errors. I did end up learning the hard way, and then I went to an alternative hospital. And I'm going to tell you what, you believe in God just like I do. We're both Catholic. And that when I went to Florida Hospital, completely different hospital through Halifax, teaching hospital. That was a brilliantly wonderful experience. Everything lined up to where I was like, this just feels God ordained because everything worked out. The nurses were amazing. The doctors were listening to me. And then they were able to kind of track down what was going on, which ended up being, a very severe MS attack, probably causing spasticity. And spasticity can kind of mimic seizures in the way that they look, which would make sense in the way that I was completely aware throughout the entire thing. But if you look at the totality of the entire ordeal, I don't know how I'm still here. And through the grace of God,
Miracle.
That's all I can say.
Miracle.
Yeah.
Trader Jill on the Dude Maker Hotline here with us. You know her as Lee on the Crusade Channel 4.0, imaging and comedy campaigns and routines that you hear. Well, one thing that I hear coming from you that comes up all the time and more frequently, and we just saw RFK Jr. doing battle and literally in a gladiator's bowl in a Senate hearing room the other day against,
it's ridiculous.
Against 9 people that really, if they had swords or some method, probably wanted him dead. And this is all over seemingly a defense of the or the hundreds upon hundreds of billions of dollars in pharmaceutical loot that is available and is the lifeblood, if you will, of tens of millions of Americans. And it's better living through chemicals and through chemical compounds. But it doesn't sound like it's better living. There was a stat the other day, I think I saw it was on your X.com. How many people or what is the average, like an average American is like taking 3? It was on your X. I saw it. 3 or 3
they're not doing anything about lifestyle. So all they want to do is drug people up, which is why I'll tell you when we start talking about foreign doctors, and I want to kind of circle back to that, they tend to be better doctors because they're not just trying to shove drugs down your throat. They're like, listen, you need to lose weight. It's putting internal pressure on all your organs. You're making yourself sick. Instead of being lazy, let's look at what you need to do. But we live in such a victim society, people would rather pop a pill than change their lifestyle.
I was saying, you're not talking about you, because if you lose any more weight, we are going to be measuring you for a casket. So
I really wish that were the case, sir, but unfortunately right now it's not.
Well, you kind of
50 pounds in this ordeal, and it's not great.
Well, I mean, you have with MS, you have something that's fluctuating. Let's go back to Trader Jill's blog. Which basically your X.com is your blog, and something that you write about often. You and Ann Coulter are the only 2 women that seem cognizant of this, and that is that you can actually physically see if you're on X.com, for example, enough. And you're posting frequently enough and you're actually monitoring your analytics, you can actually see this ghost called the algorithm grab your stuff and not release it, suppress it. You can actually see it. And now I've been shadow banned. You know that I was like one of the first 10,000 accounts, and they won't listen to me. I'm like, dude, I signed up in February 2009. Jack Dorsey wasn't even on as a CEO when I became a Twitter subscriber. And you want to know who I am? I want to know who you are, sir. Why did you deny me a blue check mark? My name is on my radio show and has been for however many years. But in 2014, 2015 or so, I started noticing the algorithm or whatever it was doing, the shadow ban. You would think that we got a little bit of relief when Elon took it over. I'm here to tell you that I'm still shadow banned. I have people write me if I post 10 things in a day, I'm going to get one person who is going to write me and go like, dude, I didn't even know you were still alive. He goes, I started following you in 2012. This is the first tweet of yours I've seen in 13 years. So we know that the creature that it exists out there, and you know, and I don't want to get off the subject of MAHA, but you're doing some work here also in this sphere of diagnosing and pointing out to people, guys, you're not. This is not a free speech forum like you think it is.
It's turning into what is looking like a pay-to-play scheme.
Yep.
That what they're doing is they're making it's the human condition to solve the problem, and you have to, especially online, you have to surround yourself with good people who are going to be like, whoa, is that the image you want to put out into the world? And so not only do you have to battle turning into a people pleaser and too much of an entertainer, which I've flirted with that a couple of times, and fortunately I have some really good friends that are like, whoa, Lee, is that the image you want to put out? And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right, it's not. So, but not only do you have to battle that in human behavior, but then they're pushing people to extremes to solve the problem. And how is that going to lead? I did an experiment. I paid $50 for like a day for kind of a Marco Rubio funny post that actually, if they didn't have their thumb on the scale, that would have done much better. I've looked at posts in my highlights that have just flown 7,000 here, 11,000 there, 5 million here, 4 million there. The thumb is so heavily on the scale that it's strangling everybody. This isn't free speech. This is insanity. And people are getting upset, and it's causing extremes in human behavior.
Well, it is. You just have to play it like I do, which is I just conform my mind to the reality that, 130 people saw it. Yay. But I'm not trying to make a living. You are trying. You actually have enough. You can actually have access to some of the subscriber services and stuff. As a matter of fact, you can subscribe to @RealTraderJill on X.com. And when they rope you into the business model, well, then I think truth in advertising and exactly what it is that they're doing with your intellectual property that you're basically loaning to them for them to publish, I think is the order of the day. And they're not forthcoming with it. And Lee, it is a pay for play scheme. It is not an accident.
100%.
It's not an accident that now, no matter what it is that you publish on X.com, unless you're one of them, you're going to get a message at the top of your post going to say, "Have 100,000 people see your post. Click boost now." So you're saying that the post is worthy of 100,000 people seeing it, but only if I pay you to make it happen. No, I'm not playing that game. No.
Yeah, and I'm a Premium Plus subscriber, so I pay
So am I.
the
Well,
max.
I'm not a plus. You're a plus. I'm just a premium.
Yeah, I'm a plus, so I pay the max, and it's still abysmal, the reach that I get. And I don't think, I'm sure not every post of mine is a diamond. Let's be realistic here. But, some of them should have gotten a hell of a lot more traction than we flatlined. Ever since August 22nd, it has been a flatline nightmare. Elon doesn't care, and he's not listening. So it's sort of like even the Elon pets, they're flatlined too. They're not getting any momentum. All we're doing is losing followers, staying flatlined in terms of our reach. But that comes at a cost too, which is kind of a different topic. The bigger you get, the more open to attacks from people who don't do what you do. They get jealous, it gets weird, and then the stalking and harassment on criminal levels begin.
It's sick, and I don't.
And they don't stop it either.
I think all people are going to be cured of social media itch before the end of the next decade. Let's go to this. I'm on your X.com, and this is a subject that's near and dear to everyone. By the way, your thread on the Crusades should have gone to like 2.5 million people.
Yeah, instead they
7,
actually put a warning label on it. They didn't like the language on one of the slides.
Yep, put a warning label on her thread on the Crusades, which was factually accurate and very well done, as I told you that day. Okay, Here are the facts about giving children the COVID-19 vaccinations since Moderna was cleared in a disgusting move by the FDA. Now, I don't know if this is these are holdovers from previous FDA that did this. I can't imagine that RFK Jr. would have had anything to do with this. But this is what was not present Thursday in that hearing room where RFK Jr. was being yelled at by all those stooges for Big Pharma. And he kept trying to say, if you'll let me answer the question, I'll tell you. If you'll let me answer the question, I'll tell you. Let's go to point number 5, Lee. A study published in Circulation analyzed Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine data from Israel. It found that males aged 16 to 19 had the highest risk of myocarditis post-vaccination, with approximately 1 in 15,000 developing it after a booster dose. Cases were mild, resolving in an average of 3.5 days, but the risk was statistically significant compared to unvaccinated peers. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, if you get myocarditis, this is not a cold that you can get a cure for. Once you have it, you have it.
Yeah, correct. It's going to do damage to the heart. It's sort of like post-pulmonary embolism for me, which is, I forgot to mention they did find that too. Surprise. So it actually, because it goes through the heart to get to the lung, and you're like, oh, okay, so this could have gone really bad. My doctor was like, oh, yeah, you totally could have died. Got it. Thanks, Mr. Bedside Manner. So, yeah, it's just, the whole thing is just terrifying. And if you can see what RFK is dealing with, you're starting to get these people inside the FDA that are so entrenched. They've reached godlike status. And the way that they're measuring these studies, it leads to people that don't understand the drug world, the study parameters. They think a new study says, and bam, they believe whatever comes after that. They're like, oh, a new study says. Okay, like even older members of my family, they believe the mainstream media. They don't look past it. They think podcasts are hoodoo and not real. So things are really, really disturbing right now. RFK is trying to root out the rot in the FDA, and it is significant. In fact, it's so significant that I'm hoping we can touch on the failed Alzheimer's drug. It is shocking that they cleared it.
Do it.
Okay.
And this goes all the way back, by the way, the failed Alzheimer's drug, go all the way back to the failed HIV drugs. Go back and read Celia Farber's book about Fauci and about the supposed vaccine for HIV in the 1990s and how many hundreds of thousands of people were killed and in the test and what have you.
Oh, yeah, it's shocking.
Well, if you haven't ever read about it and learned about it, it is shocking. And people will go like, that's not true. That's some urban legend, just made it up.
It's true. Yes, it is.
No, it's true. And then you have this recent example of the Alzheimer's drug. Tell them about it.
Okay, so there's a drug that was released and it's called Aduhelm, okay? And it was from Biogen. Biogen is a massive drug company. Now, keep this in mind as I'm explaining this drug to you and just the horror behind it. Now, on average, Big Pharma has like thousands of drug applications in. Now, think about that. Each drug application that they have in every single step of the way to each clinical trial, each extra indication is roughly about $4 to $4.5 million. That's how Big Pharma is funding the FDA. It's paying them billions of dollars every year, so they tend to bow to Big Pharma, and Biogen is one of the biggest, okay? So keep that in mind. So Biogen introduced this drug called Aduhelm, okay? And they introduced it to the FDA. It was such a controversial drug that they ran something called an AdCom. Now, an AdCom, they'll do it from vaccinations, all kinds of things. Think of it as a CYA, right? It's the FDA trying to cover themselves. The FDA doesn't necessarily have to listen to their panel of experts, but typically they do. They did not here. The panel of experts, what happens during an AdCom in the stock market world, what they will do is they will freeze the stock all day long. And the public AdCom, and it is public, you can watch every bit of it live. In fact, I can link you the AdCom for COVID, and you'll be like, what the hell did I just watch? You can see the absurdity that they cleared these vaccines. But I'm digressing. I apologize. So back to Aduhelm, okay? They can see that it reduced amyloids on the brain, but that was a hypothesis that it was going to help Alzheimer's patients. They were simply desperate to say, hey, we finally made some progress, and so they released it. Their AdCom panel voted overwhelmingly against it because the drug trials did not show that it was worth the severe side effects. Here's an alarming stat.
Okay.
Around 40% of participants receiving the higher dose developed brain swelling or bleeding. 40%.
40%.
Does that sound worth it to your Alzheimer's mother?
Well, it used to be back in the 70s, all you had to have was one death in a clinical trial, and a drug got nixed.
Yeah,
One.
exactly.
One.
They, after a couple of years, had to say, okay, sorry, our bad. And I told people at the time, I actually was teaching my doctor, my physician, and his wife, the stock market in biotech. And he was like, oh, it's going to be amazing. And I'm like, whoa, okay, stop being all in for big pharma, because they're making things sound like puppies, kittens, and rainbows when that's not the case. And I told him at the time, he referred people to this drug. And I told him at the time, I showed him it didn't work. And the serious side effects were not worth it. They ended up pulling this drug. Fun fact, they pull about 1,400 previously approved drugs off the market every single year that were, wait for it, previously cleared by the FDA.
Yeah, RFK Jr. has done a lot of work, the Children's Defense Network and others out there. You can watch when he was doing a show every week, Del Bigtree's High Wire, the movie that they made back in 2015, Vaxxed, and then the second one, Vax 2. There's been a lot of media that has actually chronicled, has covered this. Just people don't believe it. And the behemoth is so large and so powerful because it has its buddies in media. And watch any network sporting event or any event that caters to anything other than teens on Nickelodeon or Disney, and you will see the advertising is geared towards what? A medicated society. You can't have a society that is coughing up 25% of every dime, of every dollar that it earns. Let's just pretend that that's in bushels of wheat. So you got a bushel of wheat, and 1/4 of every bushel of wheat goes to a guy that you never see to treat things that you don't have with things that are ultimately going to kill you. Does that sound like a sane, solid system? When in fact, the rest of the world, the average of every civilized Western country in the top 100 in the UN, the average spending per capita on medical services is 9%. 9!
It's shocking.
We spend 1/4. 25. What the hell? And we're supposed to be the greatest, most advanced country in the history of greatest, most advanced countries, the most civilized and the most healthiest. I tell you something that's bothering me about the whole MAHA thing is corporate negligence. You know, Robert Kennedy can't go and call every corporation to the mat. The only sop that he's gotten out of McDonald's is they're going to put actual sugar in the Coke. With Coca-Cola, rather. The only thing he's gotten out of them is going to put actual sugar in the Coke and less of the variety that's made with corn syrup, right? He's got nothing.
Exactly.
He's got nothing from McDonald's. He's got nothing from any of the other big chain restaurants. He's got nothing from the Brinker Corporation. Maggie, how many restaurant chains does Brinker still own? Chili's, dozens. Olive Garden, you name it. He's got the corporate irresponsibility is what you need to look for. The only responsible corporate steward or corporate citizen is Steak and Shake, still, to this day. And here we are. We're 9 months in now. And I keep waiting that somebody is going to come out tomorrow. Because people like you, Lee, you are extraordinarily sensitive to genetically modified or other modifications in the food supply. You can't tolerate it. You're because you have MS and the other autoimmune deficiency things that are working in your body. You can't process their poisons. It'll kill you. and yet their poisons are legal. You know, I keep talking about this. Europeans come to the United States, they can't eat our bread. It'll kill them.
No, when I was in London and Ireland for November, December with friends, I started having some health issues over there. But I'll tell you what, I felt better eating their food because they're not trying to drug their population into oblivion. They're not trying to dump a bunch of chemicals and garbage into their food. So it's sort of like we're balancing. Yeah, we're not communists, and they are, but it's like, it's like, which is worse, right? What's going to kill you faster?
Well, and all right, let's close on this, and now that you've gotten your nervies out of the way, you and I are radio besties. You're all good. You see,
Okay.
I didn't bite, and you had a good time. Maggie, can you cue up the video? I just want to play a minute of it. The guy running, talking about being a young man, being an actual young man. Because you had a question on X.com today, and it was kind of directed towards men. What is a good man? Now, Lee, listen to just a minute of this and tell me if this guy is a good man.
I got married at 21 years old. I had 2 kids by 25 and a third on the way by 27. I've never tried alcohol, never touched drugs. I don't go to parties. I've only slept with one woman, my beautiful wife. I stay away from pornography, and I'm very conscious of what I put in my body. And some people would say that I'm missing out on my 20s. But the thing is, when I was young, enough people that I looked up to, people whose lives I wanted to mold my life after, were all saying the same things. That what mattered most to them was never the money, was never the business, was never the six-pack. It was the relationships that they built with their loving wives or husbands, the amazing families they were building with their kids. So I decided to just jump that phase of life where everyone's focused on having fun, looking out for only themselves, making money, sleeping around, just wandering without a purpose. And the thing is, if you want to have a life in your 40s and 50s that's full of purpose, if you see yourself eventually focusing on building a family and becoming a good partner, why wait?
All right, stop right there. Why wait? Is that the good guy you're talking about?
That is a good man. I have no complaints about that man. He's a good man. Did you see, who I would consider to be a very upstanding man? And let me find it here. His response to this question. So I do a lot of research because, I went to school for the social sciences. I never stopped researching. I'm always interested in the human condition and this battle between the sexes that we have that is purely manufactured by soulless, sick politicians. So this man responded to me, and he says, if only you knew how many are out there wondering if they're good enough. And I was just like, when I said it was profound and I needed some time to myself, it hit me. That simple one line, this man is not playing victim, not at all. He's a man who served, who takes care of his kids, who tries his hardest. He's not playing victim. In fact, some guy sent him a nasty message, and he said to him, I'll kind of skip over the language, but he said to me, let me see if I can find it here. Basically said, well, this is a guy with no self-esteem. And I was like, whoa. I was like, be nice, because what he shared was a raw, real moment. And so there we go. I see it. And so he responded to this guy, and he said to him, you're entitled to be wrong. Because of my deployments, my kids have known me roughly half their lives. I've tried to make the world a safer place for them. But there are times I wonder if I've been a good enough father or good enough husband, so kindly F off. And I understand that. So we have people that we have a sea of people that divine motivations and who somebody is via magical thinking. We think somebody is a villain or a saint versus solely because of what we want to believe. And a lot of the times when we come up with these theories about other people, it really just shows our own self-hatred, and it's just reflected outward. But this man and the struggles that he's having in society, he's not complaining. He's just like, wow, if you only knew. If you only knew.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the sentiment, and the young man who was running and talking about all the things he doesn't do. I'm just going to push back a little bit and say, son, there was no reason for you to not have your first sip of bourbon, okay? So you want to run and not have alcohol, that's fine by me, but cutting the bourbon and the cigars out is not manly. So we're going to move beyond that, and I'm going to look beyond that into the rest of what you had to say, because there are people that are in, we're Catholics, right? And I tell people often when they go, well, do you have to have wine with every meal? I'm like, I don't have to have it. I like to have it. I want to have it. Yeah, well, that's not very Christian. But I'm like, then I used to know it by heart. I quote the Gospel of St. John about the wedding at Cana. I'm like, he didn't just. I said, do you know what a stone pot is? Do you know what he's talking about? We're not talking about a 12-ounce can of Miller Lite that he turned into wine. The stone jars hold like 6 gallons each, and they're like 4.5 feet tall. And he looked at me and went, okay, you can have your wine now. And it was the best wine they ever tasted. I'm like, I don't know how many people were at that party, but I guarantee you they got rip-roaring buzzed as a result of the wedding at Cana. And I am ecstatic to tell the story. So don't lecture me about me having wine at dinner.
So that's true, but I'd like to point to, are you familiar with Dostoevsky?
I am. Yeah, I tried to read Dostoevsky, and I guess it's one of those authors. I tried to read and I had the book.
Okay.
I had the Brothers Karamazov, and I know it's the signature work, and everyone needs to read the Brothers Karamazov. And I probably read 4 chapters, maybe 10% of it. So I cannot say that I have read enough Dostoevsky to have any sort of an opinion on his work.
No worries.
Now, ask me about
so
Chesterton, and I can answer the question, but not Dostoevsky. Not
he wrote a book called The Idiot.
Yes,
okay?
yes.
And basically it's a reflection on society and looking at a man who is so pure and so good and open, and his open-hearted simplicity and guilelessness that he's just labeled an idiot. So it's sort of like I don't judge this young man, despite the fact that, listen, I have MS. The only good things that come with MS are parking and drugs, and I get edibles. So, I mean, that's all I'm saying. I had one yesterday, and it was lovely. But for other people, I look at him, and I'm like, if this is your thing and it makes you feel good and you're doing what you need to do for yourself and the people that depend on you, I'm fine with it.
No, I was just kidding.
No, I know you are.
I was fine, whatever.
But I just thought The Idiot was a really good representation of society's views on people that are so good. You know, like I'm not the person that could be him. You're not the person that could be him, but it works for him.
No, it does, and I think that a conversation here has worked for all of us. Now, you see there's no clickbait contained in the previous 50 minutes of conversation. There's no clickbait. There's no 15-second or 30-second gotcha. Nobody's going to watch this tape. We're going to go like, oh, you have to say this. Nobody's going to go, breaking! You have to say this. Or nobody's going to post, do you see it? Do you see it? No, I don't, and I'm unfollowing you because you're a jerk. But it was a good conversation. And it's the kind of conversation that I wish more people would have. I'm happy to be the category pirate here, though, and own the conversation. You know the guys, category pirates. Arr, mateys. I'm happy to be the category pirate here. And even though I love Tucker and what he's doing, no, that's not a Tucker. This is not a Tucker Carlson interview. The last 20 minutes or so have been 2 people conversing about life. about the
Exactly.
things that we see in life. And it may not be exciting enough for people on X to follow me or you, or to go like, yeah, I want more of that. I thought it was pretty exhilarating. I thought it was pretty entertaining. And I think that we used to kind of have, our television. I think our movies, our general culture kind of reflected that. That you were allowed to just have, things. The Andy Griffith Show, for example, made things funny that weren't funny. I mean,
Yeah.
you could Floyd the barber could make a haircut funny. What's funny about a haircut? Well, there's nothing funny about it. But if you watch enough Andy Griffith and the Lever to Beaver show, those two boys could make being dirty, stinky, smelly boys. They made it funny by how they can.
Or Lucille Ball. I
Oh,
love Lucy.
oh, I love
You start looking at those they're pretty funny, actually.
No, she's hysterical. My 27-year-old daughter, loves Lucille Ball. She will, dude, you got to lock her in a room with TV Land and say it's a Lucy marathon, and she wouldn't come out for a day. Lucy was, and again, that was great comedy with people that knew how to be funny. And
Right, but more wholesome. And we've lost so much purity and wholesomeness in our society. And I'm raising a child, a 15-year-old little girl, and what she's being bombarded with in this society. These boys have already tried to get her to send them nudes, to engage in depraved sexual acts, things like that. And, she's not about that. She's a child. I like to think I'm a very aware mother, and I keep those things from her. And I said, I was like, I am not going to make it out of your teenage years without going to prison.
Please try. Please just try.
Fortunately, I know where she's at every moment of every day because, and I told her, she said, Mom, you think you're God over me? And I said, well, right now I am. I said, I have a bit of, a colorful sense of humor, but she's high functioning autistic. So she likes this kind of thing and it works for our family. And I tell her, I'm the host and you're the parasite. And someday when you grow up and you have your own little parasites bleeding you dry, then you get to make the rules. But right now, I'm the host and you're sucking me dry, so I get to make the rules. So she laughed, and it's just comedy. Now, I could say this to other normies and be like, oh, how could you? And I'm like, well, I'm just joking. It's satire. And this is kind of a dry sense of humor. But I have 5 younger brothers, so I'm female, but kind of not.
All right, well, we have some great new comedy coming you people's way, and some stuff that has just been recorded for Crusade Channel 4.0. You'll be hearing it in the coming days, so Lee is not going anywhere. All right, well, you're going to have to come back because we just got started with All That Is Trader Jill on X.com.
Well, I would love to. Hopefully we can get this, we can do a podcast type scenario because people are very, very certain that I am a 300-pound catfisher. Like they've gone all in on this, and it's so crazy.
So they think that you are Jabba the X-Trader.
Yes, they have. They uncovered old fat pictures, and they are running with that for all they're worth. And I'm like, oh, well, that's good. You've got me.
Oggi one Jill Trader.
Exactly.
Solo.
And, Jim has been Zooming with me, for the last, 2 months?
Yes.
And he's met me in person. So the only reason why I wasn't able to come down to the Turning Point deal is because I've just been battling these health conditions. So yeah, I would love to. I'd love to come back and do something live. We
absolutely will do it. Mark it, sister. Everyone say a Hail Mary and a Memorare for Lee at Real Trader Jill on X.com. You can follow her there as well. You can subscribe to her blog, and of course, you can hear her here on the Crusade channel. What a gift and what a blessing. We have been, you've been on the Crusader Monastery prayer list for like 6 weeks now. I hope you know it.
And I think I fell every single one of them through the grace of God. I made it through all the doctors trying to kill me.
Well, everyone is delighted to have met you. So everyone put your hands together for Lee. All right, we will talk soon. God bless you.
And may the Lord bless you as well, sir.
Okay. All right. So that's Lee, our at Real Trader Jill on X.com. And
She's lovely.
it would be hard to tell that she had MS. Because you would think, she'd be angry with the world.
She's very upbeat and positive for having so many issues.
And, it comes out in the Crusade Channel 4.0 imaging. All I have to do is get her in the neighborhood of what is kind of funny. The bits sound really funny, and somebody may say, what's great writing? The writing's okay. With great talent, they turn, average writing like mine into comedy, into something that's endearing and is funny, like Maggie's favorite line. What? What? It's like getting stuck in an elevator with Jasmine Crockett. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing. So y'all can all say a prayer for her, and she really does have MS. So, and it's a debilitating, disease that's going to get worse. But, in the position that she's in, she just monitors what it is that she eats, and she's constantly